Varsågoda.
Thank you. Has anyone seen any painting of Marc Chagall? Marc Chagall, is he known to the audience here? Yes, yes. Viktor Martinovitj, writer from Belarus, just came from Minsk today, here to the book fair in Gothenburg, has written this book about Marc Chagall, and it's a long journey for you. It started many years ago, but we will firstly also introduce Dimitri Plax, who is also a writer, translator, living here in Stockholm, but from Belarus, from Minsk. And we will have a conversation, as you can see here, from Marc Chagall to the Nobel Prize winner of literature, Svetlana Aleksijevitj. But first of all, Viktor, Marc Chagall, did he come to you? What happened?
Well, I always been interested in his crazy colors in the language, artistic language that he had, and then I started to get interested in him, and the fact that he originates from Belarus was an additional attractant for me. I wrote a thesis, doctoral thesis, on his years that he spent in Belarus in 1918s, 1920s, and I failed to defend this thesis in Belarus, and I had to move to Europe, to Lithuania, to defend it properly.
So let us know in detail, you were not allowed to have it at university in Minsk?
Oh, yes. I mean, this is an interesting story, because being very famed, very recognized internationally, in the late 90s and early zeros, Marc Chagall was still under some kind of symbolic ban. So it was not welcoming to research and write about his years that he spent in Belarus, because he was banned in USSR, in Soviet Union, and a lot of elites from early Belarus was originally from Soviet Union. So it's not that simple.
I see. So we will later talk about how he linked to today's situation. But Dimitri Plax, you were a student of Minsk during the 80s. Did you learn about the artist Marc Chagall, who came from Belarus?
Yes, we did know about Marc Chagall, of course, but as Viktor mentioned, he was more or less prohibited during the Soviet time. And when I was studied art during the Soviet time, it was like a bit underground artist who each of us of students were interested in him in some way, because it was, and it's a really funny story why he got this prohibition, because I don't know if you know about it, but Marc Chagall painted a very famous painting called Revolution, and in this painting he depicted Comrade Lenin upside down, and it was enough to prohibit him as an artist in the Soviet. So, yeah.
And today could you say that we learned about your thesis there, but today in Belarus, is he controversial still, 2016?
We got him legalized. Those who were focused on Marc Chagall, on his memory, on his legacy, we managed to get him legalized, and we luckily now have a couple of pictures, oil paintings by Chagall. We didn't have them 10 years ago, despite the fact that he was born in the country which is now named Belarus.
And we all know that there's a limitation for the writers in Belarus, and you yourself has given out 5 titles, 5 books, and are published in different countries. And how did you find the situation today for you as a writer in?
Well, you know, the essence of my doctoral research, which was published in this book, is that during Chagall's time, he was very unsuccessful. Everything that he started as a commissar, as a commander of fine arts in Vitebsk in 1920s, from the beginning of the art school and until the celebration of some official celebrations in the city, they all ended with failures. And this book is about the loser, Marc Chagall, the loser. And to be involved in some kind of writings right now in Belarus, it's very much about this feeling of being loser, because you are not on TV. Despite you may be quite popular, but you are kind of dissident, and yeah.
You mean you're a dissident in your own country?
Exactly.
Yeah, but you are also sharing your time with Vilnius. So you are going in between the Europe,
yes.
EU and Belarus. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's life lived in trains and buses. I'm contracted to spend 2 weeks every month in Vilnius, and I live in Minsk.
And Dimitri Plax, you are also crossing the border many times, Belarus and Sweden. And how do you feel about the nowadays situation for writers in your home country?
What a question.
It's too big?
Yes, a bit. It depends on writers, I have to say, because we have a quite interesting and quite unusual situation in Belarus. In Belarus, is mostly everything in the society is divided on two. We have like 2 communist parties, one in opposition and one loyal to the regime. We have 2 unions of writers, for instance. One is loyal against towards the regime, and one is free, more or less, not in opposition but free, more or less in this, under these circumstances, you can be free in Belarus, So it depends what writer you are talking about. If you are a loyal writer, you can be published by big state-owned publishing houses. Your books can be distributed by the monopoly, which is state-owned monopoly. Distribution monopoly in Belarus is state-owned, and it's like there's no forehand censorship in Belarus nowadays, but the censorship is on another level. You can theoretically publish anything you want, but then you cannot distribute it. You cannot sell your books. You can, because it's this state-owned system just denied you this right to distribute your books. So you can publish your like very brilliant novel, and then you will be sitting on this book at your kitchen, So it's a very complicated and very tricky situation. So, yeah.
But we have to put our eyes on Svetlana Aleksijevitj also, and it was tremendously nice when she received the Nobel Prize. And how did you felt about it, Viktor Martinovitj, when she got the prize?
Well, at least some of the people learned the word Belarus. Before that, I was on Frankfurt Book Fair, on Leipzig Book Fair, and I'm a writer from Belarus, and they never asked, what did you write? They always asked, where is the Belarus? So after this Nobel Prize, I don't have to tell that I'm a writer from Belarus, which is situated between Poland and Russia, which is good.
And Dimitri Plax, you told us about the situation for writers. If we speak about Aleksijevitj, is she allowed to be shown on TV and listen to radio, state radio today in Belarus?
Absolutely not. No, it's she has, I think, 2 public meetings with readers after she received Nobel Prize in Minsk, and both of them was organized by these independent unions of Belarusian writers. So the official establishment, they just, they don't recognize her. She
It's a
doesn't
kind
exist
of
for them.
ignorance.
Yes, it's completely ignorance. Yes.
And for Viktor, you want to publish and be known in your own country. How do you do?
I'm not on TV, but I'm on internet, and I have thousands of readers, so it's okay. I mean, I have something to rely on. There are writers who are elder than me, who are in the generation of Svetlana Aleksijevitj, and they, like the generation which is totally lost, they have never been born in an era of internet, and they cannot they could not publish their works in the internet. So they created a powerful novels which are about to be forbidden by everybody, by international publishers and by Belarusians also. So which is very painful for me. I'm okay.
You're okay, but internet, Dimitri Plax, it meant that going worldwide, it was a possibility for Belarusian writers to come out.
Yeah, it's not that easy because exactly as Viktor mentioned, Belarus it's not that known in outside world because it's nothing spectacular happens in Belarus. Belarus don't has oil or gas or something which is like important. But we have a Nobel Prize winner nowadays.
Yeah. I see. And Viktor Martinovitj, what will be the next book? What are your plans?
Well, I have just published my latest novel, which is called Lake of Joy, and it's a location on the moon. The name of location on the moon. And it's quite successful. It's during 1.5 months we got the bestseller of a year. So we sold more copies than everybody is sold in this state-owned system. Sold for last 8 months. So I think I'm quite happy with what is happening right now. Also, after success of Aleksijevitj, we have some kind of renaissance of interest to Belarusian national writers from the national audience. So I think it's a good story. It's a positive story. We have a chance.
Your first book had the name Paranoia. Have you felt this in Belarus yourself?
Well, I think the shortest way to tell the story about Paranoia is to tell that 2 weeks after it appeared on the shops, somebody banned it. So it disappeared in 2 weeks. And we still cannot sell it even in the internet. You can buy everything in Belarus in the internet. You can buy child porn or whatever, but you cannot legally buy the Paranoia book. Because, it's about, it's not about politics, because politics are always boring. Dictatorship is always boring. It's a love story, but it's a very sad love story, which involves KGB on one of the sides. So, my first story, in a way, was national tragedy. But thanks to the ban, I got it translated to English, and I got it published in US, and we got very successful German release 2 years ago, and we got very good press, and we republished it in Germany, so it's okay.
And Svetlana Aleksijevitj, she writes in Russian language. And do you write in Russian language or in Belarusian language?
Well, I have 5 novels, 3 of them written in Russian and 2 of them written in Belarusian language.
Dimitri Plax, how important is it with these 2 languages, and what does it mean to write in Belarusian language today as a writer in Belarus?
I usually say that nothing which contains word Belarusian is simple, and this is also not simple. it's also divided in two parts, because Belarusian language in Belarus nowadays, it's a language of minority. It's not the majority of Belarusian people are speaking Russian language, so it's for the state, for the government. This using of Belarusian language is per se a kind of oppositional movement, you know. But it's not that simple anyway, because you are, again, there is a state-owned publishing houses which are publishing books on Belarusian, but it has to be ideological right books, you know. It's not free books, not free writers. You can, you know, situation is very bizarre. You can go to the state-owned concert hall and to listen some authentic folklore in Belarusian. Then you're going out and we, for instance, continue speaking Belarusian, and you can get arrested for that. Because you are not allowed to, you are allowed to listen to some pieces which are past some censorship, but you are not allowed to use this language by yourself, you know. So when you are writing in Belarusian, it's like a statement itself.
So let me see. If I got you to speak the Belarusian language on the street together with some people can mean that the police come
you can get arrested for that. Yes.
Get arrested.
Yes. And then you will be face a trial, and the policeman who got you arrested, he will say that you was using dirty words on the street, which is prohibited by the law. So you and so on.
Viktor Martinovitj, is this the situation?
You know, I have the novel called Mova, which is the name of our language. And the set is in the future, in the world controlled by Russians. And people use the pieces of poetry of our language to get higher, they use it as a drug. And there are drug dealers who are selling the poetry to the drug users to make them higher. And this is my answer in it. And this novel became bestseller in 3 weeks. Because I think we have to change the language. We should be more positive, try to be more positive.
So as a writer, you, Viktor Martinovitj, uses sarcasm and ironic tone to overcome partly the situation.
I think laugh is a good, smile is always a good weapon. Especially in a situation when we don't have other weapons. So why don't we just smile at it?
And Dimitri Plax, is it possible to be ironic and have a sarcastic view publicly in Belarus? Are there any limitations?
Yes, of course, it's the only way, more or less. It's the only way to survive, to have this ironical, sarcastic distance to things, you know. Otherwise you can be, you know, you can get mad. And I have to say, when I said this about you can be arrested, I really meant you can be. It's not necessarily, but you can be arrested for using Belarusian language.
We can take it. Yes. Sorry.
Sorry?
I thought I interrupted you. I was just thinking about one other thing. It was forbidden also to clapping hands.
Yes.
Can you imagine that it was forbidden in the streets of Minsk to clap your hands because that was to show that you were supporting the opposition. Did you clap any hands?
At the moment, well, no. I got all the political involvement in my youth, and that's why I had to move to Vilnius to write this book. After that, I decided to be an intellectual dissident, not a political one.
So
no.
Dear audience, we are ready to stop. But in support of the writers of Belarus, we should clap our hands a little bit extra. Thank you, Dimitri Plax, Viktor Martinovitj.